A woman rescues a strange pink creature. Then, she discovers something shocking. When Jessica stumbled upon a peculiar, petite pink creature, her maternal instincts immediately sprang to life, compelling her to embark on a mission to rescue this vulnerable little being. Despite the grim odds, she was determined to give it a shot. Come along as we delve into the tale of Steve, the diminutive pink creature. What initially began as an ordinary February day in 2019 took an astonishing turn in Jessica's life. That morning, her schedule included dropping off a young girl at preschool. After walking the child to her classroom, bidding her farewell, and heading back towards her car, Jessica noticed a slight movement out of the corner of her eye. Initially dismissing it as a mere leaf, she couldn't ignore the persistent motion, prompting her to follow her instincts and embark on an investigation. On the cold and hard pavement, there was a tiny little animal barely moving. Immediately, compassion welled up in her heart. Jessica could not determine what it was, but she decided to pick it up. The little animal must have fallen from a nest. Maybe it was the weaker one in the nest and got kicked out for the stronger one to be raised. Whatever the case was, this little animal was barely breathing. Jessica looked in vain for a nest in the nearby trees. There was a strong windstorm the previous day, so the logical conclusion was that it must have fallen from a nest. It didn't look like a bird, so Jessica concluded that it would probably be a type of mouse or rat. Whatever the animal was, she was going to rescue it. Jessica looked in her handbag to find something to keep this little creature warm. She did not expect it to live, but being an animal lover, at least she would try. She wrapped the tiny, shivering animal in her scarf and put it in her jersey to try and warm it up with her body heat. At the time, she was hoping that it would survive the trip home. What type of animal was this? All she could make out at this stage was that it was kind of pinkish, with no hair or feathers covering the tiny body. The eyes were still closed, and the animal rolled itself into a tiny little ball and just lay there helplessly. It was clearly a newborn, fitting easily into the palm of her hand. To her shock, it almost looked like it was injured. Arriving at home, Jessica made a comfortable, warm, and soft little bed for this freakishly small animal. She had to figure out how to start feeding this little animal. Otherwise, it would die of starvation. Usually, people try some milk and feed little animals with a syringe. This was her only option for the moment. The little creature gulped away some of the milk, but it still remained weak and fell asleep. When Jessica listened closely, she could hear soft squeaking sounds. She was tired, but she got very little sleep that night. This was a suspenseful time, as most newborn animals that fall from a nest or are found abandoned do not survive the first night. They don't necessarily thrive in an environment where humans try to take care of them. Jessica honestly didn't expect the tiny animal to survive, yet she hoped. Beyond all hope, 2 days later, this little creature was still breathing. She called it Steve. Initially, Steve only weighed 1.3 ounces or 38 grams. This is about the weight of a slice of bread or a basic USB flash drive. To give you an idea, would you have taken on this task to try to secure survival for this sick, unknown little creature? Steve was just like any other baby. He had to be fed every few hours. Jessica set the alarm clock each night to provide feedings between 3 and 4 hours apart. The moments that she fell asleep were restless, as Steve was not out of the woods yet. She was a little sleep-deprived, but she would easily make the sacrifice for Steve. In the meantime, Jessica had to continue with her normal work life and needed someone to look after Steve during the day. He was too fragile to be left alone at home. Since Jessica was the only one who could take care of Steve, you would go with her by default whenever she had to go someplace. He was so tiny that when she kept him close to her body, no one would even notice. Jessica discussed her responsibility toward her newfound animal friend with her boss. Luckily, he was accommodating and allowed her to bring Steve to work. She would make sure that she had some milk formula and a safe place for him to sleep so she could do her job and continue to feed him at regular intervals. Like a little baby, little Steve slept a lot, and that made things a bit easier. He was growing stronger, although he still remained this tiny, hairless creature that continued to look very fragile. Steve was scared and confused, still learning to trust people. The initial milk formula was changed to a puppy supplement every 3 to 4 hours, and they started using a pipe for the feeding. Jessica found this information on how to feed her baby creature on the internet. If not for the valuable information she found online, she might not have been able to help Steve survive and grow stronger. After 2 months, little Steve gained a lot of weight. Can you guess how much? A full 2 ounces, 57 grams. Although this may sound insignificant, he has more than doubled his weight since the day he was rescued from the cold. When Jessica took him outside to venture into the wild, he would cling to her legs like a tiny leech. After such an adventurous day, when Steve fell asleep, you could see that he was dreaming. Jessica didn't know if it was a good or a bad dream. During this time, Jessica had to go to a jits tournament. Can you imagine the dilemma she faced? She considered various options, as she could not take Steve with her. In the end, they found a sitter to look after Steve. Every parent needs a break or has to travel, but then they want to know their little ones are being taken care of. It was at this time that people started referring to Jessica as Steve's mom. To celebrate this title, she got from the many followers of Steve's story. She got a bracelet with an engraved slogan saying, "Steve's mom." She is extremely proud of this title and wears the bracelet permanently. Jessica fell in love with Steve. She was excited to rescue this little animal from certain death and nurse him to save his life. Steve found his favorite spot cuddled up in Jessica's neck. There he finds both warmth and comfort. The bond between Jessica and Steve was growing stronger day by day. Not only did she love him, but she knew that he was loving her back. Over the course of the ensuing months, Steve underwent a remarkable transformation. Initially, he bore a rather unattractive appearance, described by Jessica herself as having a face that only a mother could cherish. His pinkish hue gradually gave way to a darker shade, and in due time, hair began to sprout. This unassuming, unattractive little creature was gradually evolving into a handsome young individual. Regardless of his species, Jessica's maternal love remained unwavering, as she would have showered him with affection even if he were a rat. Over time, she began to discern the true nature of the creature Steve was becoming. It's worth noting that the initially pink and frumpy infant, found on that cold pavement and rescued from certain demise, eventually revealed himself as a gray squirrel. One might question the worthiness of Jessica's unwavering efforts to ensure his survival. But to her, Steve had evolved into a cherished companion. She made numerous sacrifices to nurse him back to health and help him thrive. And if given the choice, she would unquestionably embark on that journey all over again. After some time, Jessica introduced Steve to her backyard, cautiously allowing him gradual exposure to the outdoors. When both of them felt prepared, she ultimately set him free. During the initial nights of his absence, worry plagued Jessica, but before long, Steve returned in search of sustenance. Even to this day, Steve remains a frequent visitor to Jessica's garden, achieving a sort of celebrity status with over 1,000 followers and a whopping 7 million views on Facebook. I hope you liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Also, subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.